Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets, how to increase your market business success while providing people with fresh food. Farmers markets are essential. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer or food maker selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast. This week we're chatting with Sean Kirkpatrick, co-owner of Down to Ferment Hot Sauce, about his transition from professional chef life to farmers market vendor life. Hey, I'm one of your hosts, Bridget Myers. I'm a longtime farmers market manager and education coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active farmers market manager and consultant, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and host of Intense, the National Farmers Market Conference, and the Farmers Market Pros community.
And I'm Justine Marzoni-Mead, Tent Talk producer, marketing director for Farmers Market Pros, and logistics coordinator for Intense, the Farmers Market Conference, coming to you really quickly any day now.
Counting down the days.
March 6th, 7th, and 8th, people. It's go time.
It's surge time. Get on it.
It's surge time.
Not too late to register. We still
Not
got
too
some.
late.
We still got some openings.
You can chime into it if you can't get here. It's hybrid. You can join us online, but we'd love to see your face, so you can still get tickets. Come check us out. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, if you are in an area of the country that is like covered in snow right now, and you just need a little getaway, come on down to San Diego.
That's
it's
right.
Beautiful here.
That's right.
Not a bad place to have a conference in March.
For sure.
Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by TentCraft, making custom farmers market tents for professional vendors and managers. Your tent is your store, your office, your home away from home at the farmers market. Avoid cheap canopies that fall apart after a season or two, and invest in a professional-grade TentCraft frame with a lifetime warranty. It'll stand up to today's unpredictable weather and constant use. Make it a custom canopy, and shoppers won't be able to miss you on market day. TentCraft's custom canopy tents are manufactured in the USA, so you can get a custom tent in as little as 3 days. Find more about TentCraft and their quality market tents by clicking their logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Welcome back to Tent Talk. Today, our guest is Sean Kirkpatrick, co-owner and the culinary creative behind Down to Ferment Hot Sauce. Sean has cooked professionally for all of his adult life, filling roles as an executive chef, food and beverage manager, and culinary director. At the onset of the pandemic, his love of fermented foods coincided with his dissatisfaction with corporate cooking culture, and he decided to strike out on his own hot sauce journey. In early 2021, he and his business partner, Ryan Miner, launched their line of vinegar-free hot sauces at local farmers markets in San Diego, and the rest is history in the making. Welcome to Tent Talk, Sean.
Thank you for having me.
So excited to talk to you. Sean is one of our dear vendors at our market, so we love having guests from our market on the podcast and get to know you a little bit better than we already do. So can you just tell us a little bit briefly about your personal and professional background before you started Down to Ferment?
So I kind of got my start in the workforce, if you would say, back when I was, in my teenage years, and started moving up in restaurants from early age of 17 all to now. And I've been in restaurants basically my entire professional career. So started out as prep cook, then worked my way up to, line cook and chef, and then executive chef, and all just going through the motions. I did go to culinary school, but I dropped out because I eventually became an executive chef at 25 years old. And I was just like, well, I don't need school anymore. So
Made it.
But yeah, I was just just focused in the industry, and I was lucky, and I found a love for cooking really early on, and that became my passion and what I strive for in both my professional life and my personal life. I like to always say that cooking is my love language. It's like one of the ways that I show care and love to people is because cooking is universal, kind of like music. I was just like, no matter what language you speak, what culture you're from, cooking like unites everybody.
Yeah.
Which of us doesn't speak eating somebody's food as a love language?
I know, right?
Yeah.
And I'm jealous of those people that find their passion so young in life. I mean, not to say that you don't have other issues or whatever, but it's just like, I feel like so many people, are always looking for that one thing. And so it's like, if you find that like in teenagehood or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
that's so awesome that you can kind of follow that trajectory.
Yeah, it was very, I count my blessings because everybody was going to college for like communications degree, and they're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was like, well, I'm just going to keep doing this. I mean, granted, the industry itself is not, especially for cooks and chefs, is not the most lucrative industry in the world. And, but I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the love. And I just want to be able to enjoy my life and support myself. And that's it. Like, I don't need anything more than that.
Yeah, like a sense of fulfillment, I feel like, when it comes to something that you're super passionate about. And you can definitely tell with your products, which we'll talk about as well. But so you were a chef and working in restaurants. How did you get started kind of playing around with fermentation? Did you start with hot sauces, or did you start with other fermented food first?
I actually started, the very first thing I started with was kombucha, actually.
Oh,
Kombucha
okay.
is probably like one of the easiest things to break into fermentation wise because it's very forgiving. Kombucha doesn't require a ton of specialized equipment. It's a aerobic ferment, which means it can, it's an aerated ferment. Kombucha and vinegar are very similar in their fermentations. And it's just like I said, very forgiving and very easy palate to play with. Kombucha, you just brew a tea and you can add flavorings and seasonings and stuff to it, and in a secondary process. So basically how this whole thing started was I it's funny because I can actually trace back to the day when I was like, I really love hot sauce now. And I looked on Amazon for a bunch of hot sauces and I wanted to like really expand my palate. And they were all just vinegar based. And then I started learning about fermented hot sauce, and it was like a thing to expand my already big resume and repertoire of like what I can cook and what I can do and stuff. So the more you dive down into the fermentation aspect, it's just like a rabbit hole essentially. So I wanted to fully invest my time and resources into that. Started off with kombucha and then started going into other ferments like vegetable ferments and stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like I didn't even know that hot sauce was vinegar based until you started selling your non-vinegar based hot sauces so I think that's a good education that you're doing with your products. So you were making kombucha and then kind of branching out into hot sauce. Was there when was the shift where you decided to leave your corporate chef job and focus solely on developing your own products?
The shift actually wasn't from I'm going to quit my job to do this. It was actually I'm going to quit my job so I can enjoy my life, because when COVID first started, I was just working so much, and you know how everybody was I was the reverse. So instead of everybody staying home, I was cooking more. I was working like 12, 15 hours a day to try to keep up because we were so understaffed. And it got to the point where I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. And I don't want to do this anymore. I looked at my savings account. I was like, why not? I have a little bit of extra cushion. I'll just take some time off, reassess if this is what I really want to do in my life. And I just took it was scary. Even my mom was like, what are you doing? I was like, I had just moved into a new place with my partner Ryan, and we just he wasn't working at the time and stuff like that, and now I'm quitting my job, and we had just moved into a new place in La Jolla. I was like, I don't know if I should do this, but I need to do this,
I think COVID was such a different experience for those of us in frontline professions. We kept hearing about people saying, oh, I can't go to work. It's so frustrating. I'm stuck at home. I'm like, I want to be stuck at home.
Yeah.
I want to go home.
It was nuts because I was like, man, that must be nice. Like the whole work from home thing too. I was like, what is that like?
Right?
Yeah, not for food service folks.
Yeah.
Or for farmers market people.
No, yeah, anybody dealing with that.
I was also, at the time, I was working for a senior retirement community. So it was even worse because there were so many health lines that we had to follow, like health guidance systems. But the problem is our community wasn't like a care facility like most of them are. Ours was completely independent living. So we were trying to operate as a care facility with zero care staff, and it all fell on me and other directors. And it was just insane. It sucked.
That sounds awful.
Gosh.
That's a yikes-o moment.
Well, it's nice that, I mean, like rough transition aside, it was nice that you were able to find something that, gave you a lot more happiness and joy and kind of transition into making some food products of your own and branch out in that way. Do you think your experience as being a corporate chef and kind of cooking in a corporate way or in big kitchens, has lent some good expertise for having a smaller business? I know we talked to a lot of vendors who kind of jump from a completely different world into doing a vendor business, but it sounds like you were in the same line and you had some training, even though you dropped out, but it sounds like you had a lot of experience behind you in the corporate world. How does that kind of help with your small business making your own food?
Honestly, it helps immensely. Going through corporate processes like my general ledger, invoicing, all sorts of different stuff that I've learned throughout my career. A few things that I really got really good at was the business side of of cooking in the culinary world, maintaining labor costs, food costs, all sorts of those. So I really know how to control costs and cross-utilize, which helps immensely in the small business realm, because I know that I can get something for cheaper over here, or I know how to shop around different vendors and stuff like that. So I know what margins and percentages I need to hit in order to make this work.
Yeah, so smart. Do you find advantages to that that come from operating in farmers markets in terms of finding ingredients and developing vendor relationships? Do you get anything fresh from the farmers?
The problem with ours is we're heavy peppers and heavy hot peppers, and you don't see a lot of farmers growing those in a very specific way because they can't handle our volume. Our volume has exploded so much. I'm going through hundreds of pounds of peppers a week. So that's if we were a little less in volume, probably. But the market relationships that I have made, though, with other vendors, throwing one out there, avocado toast and stuff like that, they carry our hot sauce to put on their stuff. And we give out our hot sauces as cross promotional things of here, use this sauce for this. The oyster guys, we give our hot sauces for them, so little things like that. Tea Bazaar, we use their product in our we use their tea to make our kombucha. Those things I love having, because I don't want to order tea off of Amazon or something like that. I would rather go local, and I'd rather go to a product that I know is good. As far as produce is concerned, one of the big things that has helped me in the culinary field, I use a produce company called Moseri, which has been around in San Diego for years and years and years. And I've actually had a rep that I've known for 10 plus years, that when I started this business, I just called him and I was like, I got my own company now. You want to be my rep? And he's like, yeah. And so he's able to bring specialty items in for me and all sorts of stuff. So it's a really good connection. And that's something I've taken from my professional background that I really implement.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's
we try to really encourage vendors to buy directly from our farmers, but we have a couple of produce companies in town that we really respect, the way that they treat farmers, the price that they give them for their products, and they look for local products first before they go out for imports and things.
Exactly, and that's what I love about Moseri.
Yeah, Moseri's one of those they're one of the good guys, for sure.
I love them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you launched Down to Ferment in farmers markets at the beginning of COVID, right?
Yes.
So what was that like? And compared to how things are now, what did you have to take into account?
We didn't technically launch at the beginning of COVID. I kind of launched a little bit, maybe about 10 months after COVID really hit, after the lockdowns and everything. When I quit my job back in 2020, it was around July. I took 3 to 6 months off, and during that time is when I really reassessed everything, and really that's when I started doing all the research and the permitting and all sorts of stuff to operate my business legally. And then I started launching in about March of 2021 into farmers markets. And it was still, obviously masked up. We had a certain flow of the farmers market. I couldn't do any samples. That was really hard. That was when the true salesman came out, right? And it's like, hey, you just got to trust me on this. Like,
Yeah.
because you have all these people, do you got samples? I was like, well, I can't. The funny thing about especially Little Italy is it didn't feel like the business slowed down at all for me. Like from when I started to like now, it seems like the business is still there. Obviously, tourism business like definitely slowed down. So by nature, you have a few less people from non-touristy places, but the actual local scene did not slow down at all.
No, I think we saw more local people that were actually coming to markets because they were afraid to shop inside, and they
yeah, exactly, and that was the biggest thing. But once we were able to start doing samples again, and I always like the sauce to speak for itself, right? I can only tell you so much about it. When you taste it, it's like the biggest difference. So
yeah, it's amazing. How many markets are you in now?
We are in 10 now.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a lot. So
10 a week.
10 every week.
That's a lot of markets.
We used to be at 11, but we wanted to focus and trim down our markets to where we think it's reasonable and manageable. And the biggest thing is we do a lot of events outside of markets. We're the official hot sauce of Taco Fest on the waterfront.
Oh wow.
We do a lot of Kennedy Fairs events, like street fairs and stuff like that. We're doing a bunch more hot sauce festivals this year, so we need that time and space to go to do all these, not just the farmers markets, so where we can get everybody trained up and ready to go and ready to sell there, and then that's when we can start growing the business further.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Do you do wholesale as well?
Yes, we do wholesale.
So what kind of percentage of your sales are coming from farmers markets versus, I know you have a pretty robust online sales system and your wholesale?
Between 80 and 85% of our revenue comes from farmers markets.
Wow. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Cool.
They're our bread and butter, and it's the biggest thing with farmers markets is it's consistent. It's a consistent income. Sometimes, the weather can make it a little less one day, but I mean, that's just the way it goes sometimes. But for the most part, the way that we train our employees, it's active engagement. So we're not just letting people pass us by. It's constant engagement in order to drive those sales.
Yeah, your folks really reach out. They make the eye contact. They say hello. They keep it going. So I'd like to ask you a little bit about that. How many people do you have on your markets team?
We have 6 people that we send out to markets. Some are just one day a week as an extra side job. So one of them does 4 markets a week. So it really depends. Some we use for on call, but we have grown an employee base now to where we can like plug and play people. And if somebody's sick, we can just be like, hey, can you work this? Because that's the hardest part, and that's what I learned a lot about with being a chef in the industry is staffing. It's one of the hardest challenges in almost any job. So
absolutely. And do you use some of those same people in the kitchen production process?
Yes, we do. We cross-train. I always cross-train and cross-utilize because I want my people to be secure, and I want them to have a steady stream of income and stuff like that. So we use them in warehousing and kitchen and everything like that where we can cross-utilize them. And there have been as long as we train them right, they're a big help, and we get everything done, and they get a paycheck, and we get our work done. So that way, I don't have a bloated staff to where I can utilize people in many different spots.
That's so smart, and it's also so helpful at the market when somebody's buying the sauce and the salesperson is sampling the sauce. They know how it's made. They know the ingredients that go into it.
Yeah.
They understand the process of the fermentation, and if you isolate your sales team from your kitchen team, then there's not going to be that cross-pollination.
There's questions that don't get answered by customers that really want to know the process.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And your staff is really great at all the markets, I think. So
it truly does. And it's more like, think about it when you go out to a restaurant. You ask a server, hey, what's in this, or what is this, and how does this prepared and stuff, and they can go back to the kitchen. Now we can't do that. Right. So we can't just have somebody text us, hey, what is this? Because it's a one-on-one kind of very fast service paced. So we want our staff equipped and ready to answer these questions with, flavor pairings and what goes in it and how it's made and all sorts of stuff. So it's very, very helpful from a customer perspective to ask these people questions and have them answered right away.
So do you have a pretty well-defined training program that you put your folks through when they start?
Oh yeah. So some people are not some people are not in the kitchen, but even if they are not in the kitchen or they're like a 1 day a week thing, we do our best to try to bring them into the kitchen at least 1 to 2 times so they can see the process and they can understand the process, even if they don't do it every week after week. But we do, with our farmers market staff and sales staff, we do 3 types of shifts. When you're onboarded, you have a shadow shift where you just watch what I do, or me and Ryan do the training. So it's either you watch us for a whole shift. Second shift is a 50-50 where you get your feet wet with the point of sale system. You get your feet wet with talking to customers and trying out the sauces and stuff like that and sampling. And then shift 3 is you're on your own. We're right in the back behind you to correct you on anything and answer any questions for you. And then the 4th shift, they're on their own and they set up, and we go there and we make sure that, hey, do you have enough support? Do you have everything you need to do anything? Do you have any final questions before I, let you take the wheel?
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like a really intentional way of getting people familiar and making sure that they're confident, and that gives your customers confidence. Where do you how do you recruit staff? What do you usually use? And are you placing ads on Craigslist? Are you doing
the
referrals?
Funny thing is, several of our staff, and they're actually amazing. We just celebrated 2 years, a 1-year anniversary with 2 of our staff members. So that was awesome to have that 1 year where we don't have that kind of turnover, and they are rock stars at selling. They're rock stars in the kitchen, and they're very awesome employees all around. But several of the employees I've gotten were from markets where they were just like, hey, I'm looking for a job and blah, blah, blah. And they reach out to me and I'm like, okay, let's see, let's give it a shot. And then one I got from Reddit, from just posting and just like, and hey, I'm looking for somebody. Can you, and then a few of them I got from Indeed. So I did use Indeed. It's a great way to just have a constant posting up and have resumes come your way. And if, you fall into a rut with staffing or something happens, things always happen sometimes, somebody's going to move on, and that's totally cool. Like if this doesn't fit for you anymore, go right for it, and we'll get somebody else in to take care of it. But I always tell my employees, you got to do what's best for you, right? Like I'm not gonna, if you gotta try something else or follow your dream or whatever, please do.
Yeah.
Just let us know.
Yeah, for sure. As long as you got notice. So it sounds like you're spending some real time and intentional time on staff training. I would imagine that schedules and inventory are tricky because you have to ferment this. Your sauces are fermented for a month. Is that right?
Correct. So especially in the beginning, now we have over a year worth of data. Like in 2021, we didn't have a full year of data to support it. So it was very, very tricky in the beginning because it was constant rotation of like, oh, we're about to run out of this sauce. Now what do we do? Like we need to get this done ASAP, and it's got like a week left. So it's all about, managing batches and how we do it. But now we're pretty good with everything. The only things that we didn't predict for was how busy were we going to be during the holiday markets, and our inventory just got almost decimated. We thought we had enough, but it was not enough.
Yeah, you guys were really busy. In fact, I think I remember getting a text from you saying, that gift pack that you borrowed to take on TV, can I get it back? Because I have to sell it.
Yeah. That's how busy we were. Like every piece of inventory counted. And it was just like, oh man, I need to make sure, like we prepped, don't get me wrong. We prepped, but it was like January is when we started learning, oh, okay, so we got to drum up that inventory again and get that back up to par. So we're good now. We got it all situated, but it's all about managing the batches. And now we have 7 flavors. The more flavors we're introducing to the rotation is the more it complicates things of like how many we need and stuff like that. So it does, when you're adding a different flavor, it does, spread out the sales of each item and each SKU. But at the same time, when you have a month to prepare each product, it does get a little tricky sometimes.
So when you do a new one, do you pull one off, or how many flavors do you generally plan to carry at one time?
So right now we haven't pulled any off, and it's adding a little bit more time per customer. So, but it's also giving the customers more choices. But there becomes a cap, right? You don't want to give customers too many options, or they won't know what to. Like, there's a problem when you have too many options available; they don't know what they want.
Yeah, decision paralysis sets in at some point.
Exactly, and it's like, well, I like that, but I like that, I like that. We have the 3-pack deals, we have the flavor pack deals, and stuff like that. Which really helps. But I think we're at our cap right now of 7 flavors. And then when we do eventually launch more products and more flavors into it, we're just going to have to pull one and just rotate them out per market. Because sampling more than 7 flavors, it gets really, really challenging, and it just adds a lot more time in it. And, if you have customers waiting on the back end behind other people, and you're like, hold on one sec, I'll be right with you, and it just gets really tricky, and you don't want to lose those sales because they don't want to wait.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you see, one thing that we had a hard time with when we were making hot sauce back in the old Baby Clydesdale days was there used to be we experienced wild fluctuation in the price of peppers. And, they're a seasonal item. Is that something that you struggle with, or does your rep kind of handle all of those negotiations for you?
100% it's something we struggle with, especially produce these days. The good news is it is pretty consistent in San Diego. The consistency of availability, because we're in such a kind of microclimate place, it works better. We don't have seasons like New York is going to not definitely have strawberries or something like that unless they're importing them because of their climate. So with us, we have the benefit of pulling from Mexico or Arizona or Northern California if we need to, and our rep takes care of that. Obviously use local first when possible, but we're also a business, and we have to keep our inventory supplied and whatnot. So the biggest price difference comes when the crops, it goes from old crop to new crop, where they replant the crops and everything like that. And pepper prices can double, or sometimes even triple. But we've actually got it to a point where we're doing so much volume now that we're buying in such big packs. We're not buying 5-10 pound peppers. We're going the 30-pound cases that offer a better volume discount. And we get several of those at a time. So it's our volume is offsetting that cost a lot. And when I first started, I was maybe going through 10 pounds, 20 pounds of peppers and stuff like that. And so the prices were higher. But now that we're going through upwards of hundreds of pounds a week, it's the volume thing that really helps us.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. One of the reasons why we wanted to talk to you is because Down to Ferment has such a little personality. It has a really clear, kind of a cohesive vibe to it. And it's a little naughty. It's got a little naughtiness there.
A little spicy.
A little spicy. So
Exactly.
We wanted to hear about how you would describe your brand voice and what went into developing that.
So that's actually a big importance for me, and one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to create my own thing was I wanted to encapsulate my personality within the brand and within the product as well. I am literally just a teenager. That's what I always tell my customers, is I'm always just a teenager. So they're like, wow, I love your branding, I love your marketing. I was like, it's not even, I'm not even a professional. This is just me in a bottle. It has nothing to do, I didn't pay anybody to do this. It's just me being me. And I think that's what kind of helps sell the product too, is the authenticity of it. And I'm not following and I always tell my my employees too, I'm like, I don't want you to be a used car salesman trying to get people to buy the sauce. I want you to have personality. I want you to talk to the customers. I want you to joke around with the customers, treat them like you're your friends and you're passionate about your, this hot sauce. And this is something that you just found and you really like. And the we really wanted to just maintain the authenticity of the brand and not go into like a rigid structure, because I've been in so many corporate settings where it's like, this may be off limits or this doesn't work or so when you keep that authentic self within your product, I think a lot of customers and a lot of people really pick up on it.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. You are coming straight out of the corporate world, so you really want to swing from the fences now that you have your own thing. And I appreciate that. I mean, that's definitely something that when Dave and I were doing our hot sauce thing, it really, I feel like it was an outlet for our kooky sense of humor, and kind of just like, there is something about hot sauce that lends itself to, being a little goofy or being a little...
like on the edge, just a little bit on the edge.
Irreverent.
Yeah.
And... but I'm wondering, is it ever a point of contention with your sales? Do you ever see somebody, I don't know, turned off by it, or actually right before this conversation we explained to Kat the colloquial use of the term DTF, and she didn't know before then. So like, do you ever is that ever something that you have to grapple with as a business owner, of like, one, obviously wanting to expand your audience, but also recognizing that some little old granny might not feel comfortable buying a hot sauce that's called
cherry
Beat Your
poppin'.
Meat.
Yeah. There you go.
I personally very rarely run into something like that. A lot of the times, if the joke goes over their heads, the joke goes over their heads, and it all falls down to, how does this taste, right? So, and that's totally cool, because our brand is the only exception being Beat Your Meat is a little on the nose sometimes. Obviously it's spelled BEET, but it is, we like to be subtle about everything and try to have a little subtlety about it. But one of our sauce is a little on the nose. I think the only thing that it could really hold us back is in corporate settings and corporate clients, where we did just have a corporation reach out to us over the holidays and want to buy like over 100 gift packs. But we had to work with them a little bit. They didn't want Beat Your Meat in there. They didn't want cherry poppins in there. And they reached out to us because they have bought our sauces in the farmer's market, and they loved it, and they absolutely loved it. And they wanted to send it out and share it with everybody. It was just, you have to worry about the sensibilities of certain people. And especially when you're in a very kind of client, business structure with some corporations, they don't want to like interfere with that, or they don't want to offend clients.
Have an HR situation.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I understand that. I totally do. I think our colloquialism may be a hurdle for us in getting into grocery stores and some things, because they're very, very peculiar, and they're very, rigid about their standards and their structures and everything. Right now, we don't really need to. We're growing really rapidly already, and we're doing really well. So, we do little wholesale here to mom and pops and stuff like that, and different areas. And it's like, I'm not for everybody, and that's totally okay. And if I'm not for you, then, there's other places to buy hot sauce and stuff like that. I just like to have fun. Right. I just like to have that sense of humor as well as have good food. So humor and food is like my main things in life. So why not combine the two?
Yeah, I understand that. And I think that is what's so fun about the farmer's market, is it's like, it's a bunch of independent small business owners. And as long as like it's chill with the market manager, it's kind of like express yourself, do your thing. Because you do have like a pretty clear brand voice, and just, I encourage all our listeners we'll link it in the show notes, but please check out DTF sauces online, because they have really slick, beautiful packaging that is very funny and on theme with all of the names of their sauces. Since your brand voice is kind of, in your own words, the voice of a teenage boy, like, how do you see your brand voice like informing future decisions on your business? Because you kind of are, coming from a certain perspective. So how do you see that brand voice like growing up a little bit or evolving as your business continues to make inroads in the local community and also like growing as businesses do?
Yeah, do you have like a radio version that can like go into mainstream?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Here's our G-rated.
Yeah, and keep your explicit content for the farmers market.
Is your hot sauce going to develop a frontal lobe?
Yeah. Are you saying I don't have a frontal lobe?
No, I'm saying your brand voice.
My
Your
wife
brand
would agree. So basically there's obviously a few sauces that really push the boundaries of certain things, but I just really wanted to do them, and I was just like, it's so on brand and it's so niche that I just have to do it, and if I don't do it, I'm gonna regret it, right? And it's funny because Beat Your Meat is like one of our top 2 selling sauces. Like, it's a really, really good sauce too. So when, if somebody doesn't want to buy it because of the name, the funny thing, a lot of sales, especially with that one too, are I was already going to buy it because of the name, but it also tastes really good. So now I'm definitely going to buy it, So it helps definitely in this setting. I've actually, me and Ryan have talked about like how we are going to approach corporate clients and stuff like that with, as we grow up and as we do more sauces, maybe try to get them into an even more subtler category, right? And maybe an inference rather than kind of on the nose.
Mm-hmm. A slight double entendre. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Because the funny thing about it is, I have a lot of ideas, and one of the hardest, most challenging parts is putting those ideas into function of like, oh yeah, I have this name, but I want to create a hot sauce around it. So how do I do that? Or create a hot sauce, but how do I come up with a clever, witty name that's going to be on brand? And then not only that, but we have to design the artwork that goes with it too, that also fits it. So it's just like having all of that stuff that is all cohesive at the same time. It's a lot of thought. It's months and months and months of preparation and playing with and toying with. I can create a hot sauce and play with the recipe as much as I want. If it doesn't fit with the brand, why would I have it? Because then it's just going to fall out. It's just going to be that outlier of like, what is this?
Yeah, totally.
I think that it helps. I mean, like the sauces are really great
They're
sauces.
super good.
Yeah, I mean, like I buy cherry poppins all the time, and I feel like I was like, do I want to put this in my fridge? I have a 13-year-old son. Like, do I want this in the fridge? Like, am I ready for him to be like laughing every time he opens the fridge, which he does? But it's because it's so good, you gotta get over it. So I feel like your customers, I feel like Bitchin' Sauce way back in the day started at our markets had the same thing, like
this scandalizing.
Yeah, it was like, oh no, we're saying bitchin', and it's like, oh, this is never going to go mainstream. And we had a decade ago when they were in the markets, it was like we had these conversations with them, and then now it's like doesn't matter because the sauce is so good, and like now it's everywhere. So I feel like that can expand in some way, but it's you do have to be a little bit careful of it. But I think that the quality of the product really helps launch it. If you were just being like dirty just to be dirty and your sauces sucked, I feel like it just wouldn't go anywhere. But I feel like you can kind of expand on it because the product's good.
Yeah. And there is something, I think that like having been like in the hot sauce industry or whatever, there is a sense of like those types of products attract like risk takers or people that kind of fancy themselves like living on the edge or like adrenaline junkies. Like it does kind of play to this like kind of like watch me do this like type of vibe. And so I think that like it definitely fits. I was I'm razzing you with I personally am not offended. I was just kind of wondering if that was something that you have experienced, or also like if because it is such a expression of your own personality, have you thought down the line of like the future of DTF, if it's something that eventually you would like to sell, or kind of what is your exit plan, and how does that cross with the fact that it really is an expression of your own sense of humor?
a really good question, actually, because I've actually thought about, like, what if we were to sell the business and whatnot, and all these ideas are coming out of my head. It doesn't mean that nobody else can do it. I'm just saying, like, it captures my personality, and that's it becomes your baby. It's yours. So I mean, down to ferment in general, the whole DTF slogan and everything like that, you kind of have to be careful of, because some people may get it, some people may not. Cat, hi.
It's kind of like those animated movies where they have a lot of double entendre stuff, and you say, oh, well, was that appropriate for kids? Because it's keeping the parents entertained. It's like, well, you know what? If it's not appropriate for them, they probably didn't get it anyway. So us old people are probably missing the ones that we'd be offended
The
by.
funny thing is, one of the very first markets I actually did in Little Italy, when I had the banner that said RUDTF, I had a kid walk by, and I always remember this. They were with their parents, and she goes, what does DTF mean? And the parents just start busting up laughing. And I'm like, it means down to ferment, duh.
And that's all you need to say. That's all that they need to know.
Exactly. It's all about the inference. So, like, some people are going to find the humor in it, and those are going to be those parents that laugh at what their kid is asking, and they're going to be like, oh, you don't get it. It's funny. And then there's going to be some parents that are like, I don't want to expose you to any of that, which is, fine. Yeah, I'm not, telling you how to raise your kid or anything like that. But it's just like, again, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I want to be somebody's cup of tea, And if I'm somebody's cup of tea, and we already have a very loyal customer base, and it works really well, and I kind of don't want to change that for anybody. Can I work our future sauces into a way that will be more approachable by a bigger crowd? Yes, but it doesn't mean I need to change what I've already done.
Yeah, for
totally.
sure. So, kind of wrapping this up, Sean, what's next? So you've hit 7 flavors. We've talked about you don't want 12 because people will freak out and won't be able to make a decision. So what is the future for Down to Ferment? How do you keep this interesting for you, and how do you grow your company? What are you looking for?
The beautiful thing about the reason why I wanted it to be called Down to Ferment rather than like XYZ hot sauce is because Down to Ferment is such an umbrella, and fermentation is so huge. Fermentation is everywhere in our lives, from beer to vinegar to kombucha to mustard to kimchi to sauerkraut. Like, there's so many things in our lives that we don't really know until we investigate that is fermented, and what's next. I have always started the company knowing that I wanted to go into kimchi, because I used to do a ton of kimchi when I was a chef and everything, doing them for like private events, sauerkrauts, mustards, stuff like that. I want to expand the actual fermentation business. Don't worry, Kat. I know you want those mustards.
We want
really
mustards.
Kat just wants mustard, please.
She's literally wearing a sweater that looks like mustard.
She only wears mustard now. She's so obsessed. Somebody make her some mustard, please.
So yeah, I want to go into all that, and that was the forethought I had for the business of, like, I don't want to just be a hot sauce business. I had to lean into it purely because the sauces were selling like crazy. So in order to keep up, I needed to, lean into being a hot sauce business to start, right? And we have a lot of bottles just being sold. So I don't have the time and energy right now to focus on that stuff. But once we hit a certain plateau with production and everything like that, and moving into another facility where we can handle that volume, is when we're going to really start, grinding for new items, and then also just making sure we're following the legal structure of everything, and making sure, because food safety, of course, I want to make sure that everything is above water, and it's all signed off on from like the food and beverage department, California Department of Public Health. So just to make sure that all that's, because that's probably in the back end and the behind the scenes of everything, that's probably one of the harder parts, is to just go back and forth and like, hey, so what's your pH of this, and what's, your water activity, and what's this, and like you have to have all that lined up for them so that they will approve a product to be sold.
Yeah,
So,
people don't realize how much of that science is involved, especially in fermented products. But I think it's brilliant how you chose the name and that you have that vision going forward. In our Vendor 101 classes, we always talk to people about creating a name that describes your product but doesn't describe it too narrowly, because you might want to expand. You may want to kind of riff
Exactly.
off to something else. So really smart decisions. We look forward to seeing what you do next. By all means, move mustard up to the top of that list of things to develop. You know I'm looking for a mustard vendor all the time. And thank you for being with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I had a great time, and you guys asked some really good questions.
Yeah, we like to dig in. And we'll see you at the market.
Yeah, we'll see you soon at the market. Thanks so much for spending some time with us. It was nice to learn so much more about your business and about you and how you came to do this.
Awesome. Well, I'll see you guys there.
All right.
Thanks, Sean.
Bye, Sean.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for listening today, and big thanks to our sponsor, TentCraft, for making quality custom tents for farmers market professionals. Find out more about TentCraft's all made in the USA offerings by clicking their logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Farmers markets are all about connection, and all of us, operators, farmers, and vendors, keep learning. Connect with people just like you from various parts of the country and share what's happening in your area in the terrific conversations over in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community. If you're actively involved in a farmers market, please find us there, answer the 3 qualifying questions, and join the group. You can also message us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros or email us at connect@farmersmarketpros.com. If you're looking for further education, check out our online course offerings at farmersmarketpros.com. Thanks for listening to Tent Talk. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you access your podcasts, and tell us and others how you're enjoying Tent Talk. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the next episode. Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is proudly produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll have another great episode next week, so tune in.